Hello, Professor. Greetings to you.
So thank you for joining so nicely the whole session. Now,
It's
mm,
my pleasure.
our Professor Dr. Sukalpa De will introduce our speaker, Dr. Shanti Rajupille.
Okay. Good afternoon, sir. Uh, Dr. Shanti Raju Pillai is the Assistant Professor in Department of Chemical Engineering at the Zazan University, Saudi Arabia. He did his post-graduation from IIT Guwahati and continued for his PhD from the same institute. He did his postdoctoral research in Department of Chemical Engineering, IIT Delhi. Acha, please mute because it is echoing. Sir, please mute yourself.
Okay.
Uh, he did his postdoctoral research in Department of Chemical Engineering, IIT Delhi. He has also good industrial experience. He worked as production engineer at Sri Royalshima Alkalis and Allied Chemical Limited, Kurnool, India. He has 11 international publications to his credit and many under review. Wrote 4 book chapter and authored 10 conference paper. He has a broad range of research interest in fields like synthesis and characterization of ionic liquids from foam-bed reactor for CO2 absorption, molecular modeling, phase equilibria of ionic liquids, ab initio calculations, Cosmo RX predictions, membrane separation processes, wastewater treatment, adsorption and biosorption, algal biopharma, and alternative fuels. Now I welcome Dr. Pillai to deliver his lecture on repercussions of COVID-19 pandemic on health, safety and waste management, challenges and opportunities. A review. Over to you, sir. Please start your lecture,
Thank
valuable
you very much.
lecture.
Thank you very much, Professor. And it is indeed a great honor to me. Am I audible to you all? First of all,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
yeah, it sounds good. First of all, very happy and prosperous new year to all the faculty members and students and all the participants who are present in this webinar, and myself, Shanti Raju. Okay, let me start present myself. Mm, Yeah. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you once again, madam, for your valuable introduction. Yeah. As the previous professor, Professor Venkat, was giving an overview on the plastic waste management and their industrial importance. Now this is like a completely somewhat different from the first one. I would like to stress on the, because we are in a pandemic situation, right? The entire world, including our country. Of course, I'm also from India. I belongs to AP state. So my topic name is repercussions of COVID-19 pandemic on health, safety, and waste management. Professor Das was asked me to give a presentation on waste management. I was thinking, why can't we relate the topic with the contemporary issue, because this is not my original research, because as Dr. Roy might have studied my research areas, I did not work on the waste management nor the health and safety as well. Because of my purely interest and then curiosity, I was reading some articles and reading some articles, newspapers, and some web pages. I just got interested, and somehow I got an opportunity to present you. So I will speak on this health, safety, and waste management. In fact, I was teaching this course, industrial safety and environment, in my present university for a couple of semesters. I got interested in this topic as well. That's why I was interested, and that's why I gave my consent to Professor Das. Yeah, in this maybe 2 hour or 1.5 hour presentation, I'm going to, yeah, I will be a good speaker. I will not take much time. Though I have many slides, I will try to show some of the pictures and then go so that I will leave you quickly. So I will be definitely a good speaker. Don't worry. So this is my introduction. The outline of the presentation. Initially, we would like to talk about introduction, health and safety in general, and some basic definitions and terminologies related to the safety and health. And the second one, I would like to stress on COVID-19 pandemic, the facts of face masks and biomedical waste or medical waste disposal in Asia and even some parts of the world, and considerations for the waste and wastewater service sector. Even this pandemic problem or the coronavirus is do exist in even wastewater also, as per the studies which I have come across from the research articles and some UNO related portals, even WHO portals. Considerations of biomedical waste. The most emphasis will be on biomedical waste sector in India and the world, how to dispose, how to handle, and what are the different types of biomedical waste we can get from the household or maybe hospitals or maybe quarantine centers, all these things. So this is like a statistical data as well as some research findings I'm going to present as a review. And the third section will be challenges and opportunities. What are the challenges and opportunities? I would like to keep this one in the at the end of the of my talk. And before that, I would like to address some stress and psychological risks or violence related to the COVID, because we are all working mostly from the home or maybe online nowadays because of this pestilences. So what are the different stresses and psychological risks or violence and their consequences related to this? And joint efforts to protect the safety and health of all, protecting workers from the risk and contagion during an outbreak, and addressing, so I think I have repeated this. Yeah, major managing other occupational safety risks related to this, and what are the efforts to be required for the same. So this is like my opinions. Nothing is like a personal. I have whatever the data I gathered and read, and I would like to present in front of you as a kind of information. So since it is very much related to the current issue, and before I go to my presentation, I would like to introduce my university where I work for now. So the university name is the Jazan University. It is in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We live, our Jazan province is like southern region, which is related very close to the Yemen border. The university is a very new one. In 2006, it was established 14 years ago. And our president, Dr. Al Kathani, our student population is nearly 60,000, which is a huge, it is more than 3-4 times to our IITs, basically. Of course, indeed, we have different campuses within the province, within 50 to 100 kilometer radius, or maybe within 10 kilometer radius also. We have different colleges, from medical to engineering and arts and sciences, hotel management. And our campus, the main campus is about 5,000 plus acres, 5,300 acres, which is about closely 21 square kilometers. Okay, this is our website, and I have given some nice fruits for you all for digitally. Thank you. And this is the campus location, where this is our administrative tower, 18-floor building in this region, maybe highest tower, and this is the whole campus of our university, and this is the aerial view. Okay, let us come to our main part of the program. We will talk about health and safety in general. So safety and health is very important in everywhere, whether it is your workplace or at home or maybe your traveling place or anywhere, right? So one should have a right to have a safe working conditions or safe place to live, right? Even at the same time, health is also very important. Without good health, we cannot do anything. We cannot achieve anything in our lives, right? So in olden days, according to our ancestors, they used to say, health is the wealth. If you have a good health, you can be a wealth to your family, right? Yeah. So these are all very basic things. So most of the people know. Anyway, we are just. I will go through it by reading. What do you mean by safety? Basically, the safety is nothing but a control of accident or loss, or another way we can say condition of being protected from or unlikely to cause danger, risk, or injury. That is safety. And this safety or industrial safety very much related to each other, because when you are talking about safety, we talk about industry. It may not be a process industry, it may be any industry, like it may be a medical sector, it may be a education sector. The safety is very important. Industrial safety is primarily a management activity which is concerned with reducing, controlling, eliminating hazards from industries or industrial units or maybe workplaces where you work. So these are the key definitions or terminologies related to this health and safety. Health is nothing but a state of a complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. This is a abbreviation, basically a acronym, OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Association, which is apex body who will look after this safety issues of international labor organizations. And hazard, what do you mean by hazard? Hazard is nothing but a potential to cause harm. What do you mean by risk? Risk is the likelihood that specified undesired event will occur due to the existence of the hazard. A worker is any person working for an employer under his management or supervision for a wage, even if he is not under his direct control, right? He has his own kind of environment, right? So that is the worker. What do you mean by accident? It is a kind of undesired circumstance which gives rise to ill or maybe health or injury or damage or sometimes death also, or sometimes loss of property, loss of money, or loss of maybe your valuables, anything. So PPE. In these days, we are talking about much about these things. Personal protective equipments, all cloths, accessories designated to protect against hazard. Your goggles, or maybe face mask, or maybe a face shield, helmet, or a overall jacket, a safety shoe, anything related to the safety, personal protective equipment. And employer is any natural or a corporate person employing one or more workers for a wage. A caution, take care to avoid danger when you work or travel or maybe work in industry or somewhere. You can see so many cautions. So danger caution will be there, or maybe high voltage caution will be there, a sign, some kind of these are all cautions, right? So the first part of our presentation, like the COVID-19 pandemic, face mask and medical waste disposal in Asia. What is the current situation? We are going to see some of the statistics in Asia, especially related to India and other Asian countries, with somewhat extensive or elaborative manner of statistical data, how the scenario is. Because this problem is like a unending problem, it seems. Because since March, we are seeing nothing is in India somewhat better, but some other Western countries it's like a second wave. Some different strains of the same virus is booming, and people are dying and crying also, right? So it has so many issues with the environment or with the public life or maybe animal life. We are going to see all the details. So how many tons yearly or a monthly these masks or maybe personal protective equipments are producing, and how they are impacting our world. So we must wear a mask. This is like a caution I'm giving. Waste disposal of mask and gloves. Discard the mask and gloves immediately in a waste bin. because most of the time these masks are not reusable actually, unless until it is a recyclable, like or reusable. For example, if you take N95 kind of masks, we can use it again and again. But whereas common normal surgical mask cannot be used. Yeah, if you have a confidence, I don't have any much contamination or a virus, you can keep in a hot water for 1 hour, about 70 degrees Celsius above temperature in hot water for 1 hour, and then you wash with the soap. You can use it maybe, but WHO suggests that do not use reuse the mask and gloves. Okay, so coming to this, since we are talking about the contemporary issue, this pandemic, Corona, COVID-19. So the origin, dynamics, and global spreading. So re-emerging known epidemic diseases. We have seen so far many diseases, many kind of infections, Ebola, cholera, yellow fever, HIV, etc. And now the newly emerging infectious diseases. Recently, we are seeing like SARS, H1N1 influenza, MERS. Now, presently, we are struggling with COVID. You know, it impacted the world, or it um, because of this one, world has lost many credibilities. We are going to discuss most of those things. Then the dynamics related to that one, emergence in community, outbreak with localized transmission, outbreak applications into an epidemic or a pandemic, reduced. What is the global spreading? This is like unprecedented high speed of transmission worldwide. You see, in a span of less than 1 year, the entire world was shaken. The economies or the share markets were down. Many people were unemployed, jobless people. Many markets, many industries were closed just because of a small virus. We can count maybe the world virus maybe in milligrams only. But see the impact. Global integration, travels, urbanization, these are all different ways of spreading globally. So in January 2020, the outbreak of new coronavirus, this is in Hubei province, that is near this is a province, but people used to say Wuhan. Wuhan is a small place in this Hubei province, China. And 11th March 2020, the WHO declared this COVID-19 is a big disaster, a big pandemic. So the impact on the world of work, increased unemployment, as I said in the previous, and underemployment, worsened occupational safety and health, and working conditions also, because now everything become no physical things, no research in laboratories, no work at offices. Now still people worrying about second wave. Maybe in our country it may again hit this second wave, but thank God as of now I think not much problematic as of now. Reduced access to social protection, particularly negative effect on specific groups more vulnerable to the adverse labor markets and outcomes. We have seen the migrant laborers from deep down south to these places, how the people are migrated because there is no work, they have to come back just because of this. So let us see a little about this SARS. This COVID-19 is basically a severe acute respiratory syndrome related to coronavirus. That is another way you can say SARS or CoV or SARS-CoV-1 and 2, something like that. And this lifespan in aerosols, when you sneeze or when you cough, it may be less than 3 hours. When it is spread on the metallic plates like copper, maybe 4 hours it will survive. And it is a kind of paper or cardboard, maybe approximately 24 hours. And if it is a stainless steel, 2 to 3 days. And plastic materials and sewage and solid phase, it will survive more than 3 days sometimes. This is as per the recent research in 2020. Because of this, so many research articles are published in this scenario actually, because this is like a new kind of environment the entire world has seen, right? And if you see that, as per yesterday's statistics, this is where I live. Total cases about 12,000 plus, and recovered more than 11,000. This country, they are doing very nice actually. We have no problem at all. Even mortality rate, the deaths also very, very less. And this whole country about 363,000, means 3,63,000, and recovered almost all more than 80-90%, and very few deaths. Of course, it's a small populated country, and the worldwide it is about 85 million, and recovered 48 million approximately, and death 1.84 millions. And most cases, America and India as of now, and that's also first place goes to America and followed by Brazil and India. So now coming to the face mask and medical waste. So everyone nowadays we are using face mask. Let us say more than 80% of the population, if they go out from their home, definitely they must wear. It became a state law nowadays, right? So COVID-19 swept across and ravaged the world, and in effort to contain this unprecedented outbreak, face masks have become a necessity. It's a kind of a compulsory, necessary commodity in our daily use. So increase in use of disposable surgical face mask also creating a unwanted impact on environment. So piles of discarded face masks found near the coasts of Hong Kong, United States, France, mainland China, and Taiwan. These are only few lists. List goes to a big long actually. Face masks have now an environmental as well as social phenomenon. From early February to mid-May, within 3 months time last year, Taiwan is a very small country. It's like it's a big district of our country, one of the district of our country, or maybe a small state, less population. Taiwan, Asian country, produced roughly 1.3 billion surgical masks, assuming each face mask weighs 4 grams, that 5,500 metric tons of general waste generated within the span of 3 months. A small country like Taiwan, it's a small island, produced this much. You can imagine a country like India and China with more than 100 crores population. So each garbage truck is capable of transporting maybe approximately 5 tons of trash at a time. So the Taiwan produced enough face masks over a 3 months period of about 1,100 and garbage trucks of only face masks. Used face masks are unrecyclable because they are like a normal surgical face mask, due to the fact that they may be contaminated and could potentially lead to indirect infection. If you use, the problem with recyclability is that indirect infection problem is there, and it may lead to viral transmission as well if they enter into the recycle system, unless until if it is recyclable. So discarded face mask was the 4 major risks actually. These are the 4. There are many, but we are going to talk about 4 major. The number 1 is the social and environmental risk, both short and long term, and it can be a floating marine debris, like marine in the marine environment. It's like a trash, and impact the marine ecosystem. The fishes and other species may die. They may affect badly. Rivers and mountains are maybe becoming a dumping grounds, which not only could hinder our pandemic responses, effort to properly dispose of a single-use mask, but also wreak havoc on wildlife. Because if you see the recent studies from the research articles, birds and some other small species of wildlife, they are dying and they are affecting with this face masks, which are not properly disposed or discarded. And the fourth point is that from a social risk perspective, a spike in the amount of disposed waste might lead to increase in the demand for incineration capacity. So already we are struggling with the solid municipal waste which need to be disposed properly by incineration or maybe different types of methods. But it is in addition to that one, this face mask. So it increased the demand for incineration capacity. You see some of the glimpse in the marine underneath of seashore. You can see many garbage, like especially face masks, even drainages, even the species, wildlife species, some birds and other small animals and big animals also sometimes they are struggling with this. So the estimation, these are some of the statistics related to the face mask usage and medical waste. So these are the formulas, estimation of daily face mask usage of a general population. So some of the researchers put some kind of formula to estimation of a face mask usage for general population based on the daily face mask use, means number of pieces. It related to the population and the urban population. This is the total population and urban population. And FMR is your face mask acceptance rate. Can't we say 100% they are using? We cannot say. Let us assume maybe 80%. And this is FMGP. That is assumption that each person in general population uses one face mask each day. Some medical people may use maybe number of, but on average we can take this one. This is the calculation and estimation of daily face mask usage. For next upcoming slides, we are going to see some data based on these formulas and estimation of. This is related to the face mask, and this formula related to the medical waste. Medical waste tons per day, number of COVID cases, infected persons. This is a known number. For example, in our country, we have about many cases are there, like Mumbai and Delhi, and some cases are unknown because they have a self-quarantine. They no symptoms are there, means they do medication at home. So those cases are not included here. And these are like the number of COVID cases identified and the medical waste generation rate. On average, as per the WHO calculations, approximately a person infected with the COVID-19 will generate about 3.95 kg per one bed in one day. The figures are maybe more or less similar to this one. So these calculations are, I am going to show you some statistics. And before that, we are going to see the limitations and what limitations they have taken to find out these estimations. This is the cross-sectional study, which is related to some kind of observational study by using some surveys by some chi-square and other tests in Asia. The examination depends upon the reliability of COVID-19 cases, statistics, and available information in this record. As I said, the available information, which is number known, unknown is not included here. And similarly, these are the two sites where we have taken the information. The published data was taken from these websites and published in these different journals. So number of confirmed cases, number of population, urban population percentage, and so on. And on the other hand, the medical waste generation rates, number of kgs per bed in a working day, in a day, we can say. The waste generation rates are taken into consideration and supported by previous studies. So you see, this is like a small study for some of the Asian countries like Manila. This is the healthcare waste generated before COVID, and this is the estimated healthcare waste generated during the COVID-19 pandemic. You see how many times it is only 47 tons per day. Now it is 280 tons per day. And Jakarta, similarly Kuala Lumpur, a city in Malaysia, and Bangkok, and Hanoi. These are all some small countries. If you think about these countries having this much, you can imagine how big our countries like India and China and other big population, large population countries. So the COVID-19 pandemic has led to an increase in healthcare waste all around the world. In Bangkok, again, Bangkok is again a small island. It is estimated that healthcare waste generation increased 160 metric tons per day during the crisis compared to 26 metric tons before. This was a daily increase of almost 500%. You see, 500 times. One of the reasons for the dramatic rise in waste is that increased use of disposable personal protective equipment, such as masks and other personal protective equipments. So I think I can skip this one. Distinct features that need to be integrated with the waste management. We have many of these kind of information in upcoming slides. So estimated daily, as I given the formulas for the estimation of the face mask use and medical waste in Asia with the confirmed COVID-19 cases. So you see the India, Iran, Pakistan, so many countries, we have a big data actually. And drastically, they have taken acceptance rate, only around 80% people are wearing. And they have taken maybe 35% of urban population. And the total number of cases, and this is total population. This is like keep on increasing. This data may be beginning of our, maybe mid of our COVID peak season. And total daily face mask numbers and the tons of medical waste per day, you see 6,000, as in one of our institute director also quoting about medical waste is about 6,491 tons per day, the medical overall medical waste. And these are all some of the statistical data related to the different Asian countries. You see here, this is a face mask usage of general population in Asia. So we have given this one different regions of Asian continent, like southern region, so Southern Asia, Eastern Asia, and the total daily face mask usage in the number of pieces is like, see, it is 1 into 10 power 9. You can imagine. So in this red, South Asian countries like India, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and countries near surrounding by India. And Eastern, this is like a peak one. Most of the Mongolian people live here, China, Hong Kong, Japan, North Korea, South Korea, and Taiwan. This is the highest, and the second place goes to the Southern Asia, and third place to Southeastern Asia, like Burma, Myanmar, Cambodia. These are all Vietnam, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand. Third place, the face mask usage in general. And Western Asia, these are all small countries. That's why most of the Gulf region. You can see here, Saudi is there, Oman, Qatar, Israel, Iraq, Lebanon, Oman, Syria, and other Gulf region, UAE. And the last one is Central Asia, like Kazakhstan, Turkestan, Uzbekistan, all these things. So this is the increase based on wherever there is a huge population, the usage is increasing, which leads to most of the waste waste generation or medical waste generation. You see, existing practices for infectious waste separations are storage, transportation, disposal in Asian countries. I have given just only 2 countries. The list is a very big one, like India and China, how they are practicing for COVID waste generation and healthcare and treatment and disposal. We use dedicated trolleys and collection bins in COVID-19 isolation wards, laboratories, and test centers. Used masks are discarded and collected in separate yellow color. We are going to see more about this color coding, how the segregation of waste can be put into different bins, and a common the COVID-19 waste treatment and disposal methods. common biomedical waste treatment facility, that is CBWTF, disposal permitted by deep burial only in rural and remote areas. Without this common burial waste treatment facility is not there. Large volume of yellow color coded incinerable bags or tins are used. COVID-19 waste beyond the capacity of existing CBWTF and biomedical waste incinerators necessitate the permitting health workers in incineration usage at existing treatment and storage. And if you see, similar kind of practices are also doing in China, where the virus started in China. They have a less number of cases and they are doing much better than the rest of the world. Somehow it is like a tricky thing. Anyway, we are going to see the implications of wastewater services because of this pandemic. Later on, we will come to the again biomedical waste. So some of the studies saying that these virus, the coronavirus, were washed away from the water by maybe a lavatory or maybe your washrooms or maybe from your kitchens or maybe your isolation wards. Whenever the cleaning person will clean, the water washed away and goes to the drains. And studies showing that it is detected in the drainages. Even recently, a couple of months back, even Hyderabad city, in the drainage of Musi River also detected some of the strains of coronavirus in the wastewater streams. Of course, as I said earlier, it may not live most of the time in the wastewater because most of the drainage water having a soap in it. When there is a soap, the coronavirus strains, it has a protein layer which is disrupted by the soap, so it will die eventually. That's why when we go out and come into the house, we will definitely go for either sanitization, hand wash will be done. When you do hand wash, the soap will not kill the bacteria or the virus, but the virus has a thin layer on it, a protein layer. When you use a soap, it will interrupt, it will rupture, so that eventually the virus may die. When you use a hand sanitizer, it contains 70 to 75% alcohol in it. It will directly kill the bacteria. So some of the implications on wastewater services, like during the SARS outbreak in 2003, this is in China, wastewater aerosols were identified as a highly probable transmission route affecting residents at the Amoy Garden Complex in Hong Kong, where the outbreak, this is about SARS, but no much studies about this COVID-19. 10 years back, people were dying about this, the transmission through wastewater also. In this park location, about 300 cases were detected, and out of 342 deaths were there. Those are all the sanitary workers and park cleaners and all those people actually. And high concentration of viral aerosols in building sewage. When a sewage coming from your building or apartment, we can find a high concentration of viral aerosols. Plumbing were drawn into the apartment bathrooms through malfunctioning floor drains, when bathrooms exhaust fans were also running. Australia, Netherlands, Sweden, and some other Western countries have already reported detecting traces of SARS COVID-19 in wastewater, but not the implications. The virus was detected in wastewaters in these countries, even some parts of Indian scenario also. And some of the scientists from Dutch National Institute of Public Health and Environmental, these are all very recent studies in 2020 published papers, analyzed wastewater samples from Amsterdam airport over several weeks and found that using this is like some kind of polymer chain reaction method, they found out that they detect SARS, the COVID virus, in the wastewater. Confirmed immediately after confirming their country, they have tried to find out this research on their wastewater streams. So, because sometimes we hear he did not go out and he did not contact anyone, but there was he was confirmed with the positive COVID. How it comes? It may be, as we are saying, that it is like airborne or maybe a waterborne disease. So some of the other implications related to the wastewater, importantly, detection of SARS RNA in wastewater does not imply that virus is viable and able to infect humans. There is no such studies as of now, but the detection was there, virus. And coronavirus in wastewater is relatively short-lived, as the lifespan is, as we have seen the table, only less than 24 hours, sorry, 3 to 4 hours. Wastewater monitoring has been successfully used to identify even illicit drug hotspots and track and provide early warnings of the outbreak and pathogenic viruses such as hepatitis and coronavirus. So there is also a pressing need of data on this SARS-CoV-2 prevalence and persistence in wastewater, because we have not adequate data as of now, only few reports, in order to better understanding and relation related to the transmission or how it will spread. So the third part, we are going to see the considerations of the biomedical waste sector in India and other parts of the world, and some kind of guidance and segregation and reduction waste as per the CPC, Central Pollution Control Board. So we are going to see first the hospital waste, the biomedical waste. We can classify into two types: non-hazardous one and hazardous one. The majority one is 80 to 85% one is the non-hazardous, and the rest is only we are much concerned about for the more precautions to be taken for the disposal and for the or maybe a recycle. The hazardous one is 15 to 20%. The non-hazardous one is again biodegradable, non-biodegradable, and hazardous one is like a potentially toxic. There we have to more concerned again. Out of this 15 to 20%, 5% is more concerned and potentially infectious. Potentially toxic one, maybe it may be a chemical waste or maybe a radioactive waste from the hospitals or maybe other places, and maybe a pharmaceutical waste. And potentially infectious waste is like organic, maybe our hospital waste, like our fluids or bloods, or maybe some waste organs separated from the body, and laboratory waste, and sharps like needles and other syringes, maybe your insulin kind of syringes also comes under the sharps. So this is a small table which is taken from the United Nations Environmental Program. So these studies shows that the hospital, clinics, and maternity centers and clinical laboratories and basic health units, how they are generating total healthcare waste generation per day. And similarly, infectious. This is a total healthcare waste, and this is infectious waste, as we are talking about here. Potentially infectious, right? And this one is maybe this is like a combined together, and this is infectious healthcare waste generation rate. Maybe hospitals are major sources, and even some of the maternity centers also. And this is caused by bloodborne pathogens. These are all different diseases which cause to the bloodborne pathogens, which is completely related to the medical field. Infectious waste especially are blood and blood products in free-flowing or unabsorbed state, contaminated sharps like needles, isolation waste, laboratory waste, and unfixed pathological tissues. These are all comes under the infectious waste. And infectious laboratory waste, some of the cultures, strains, and etiological agents, specimen stocks, vaccine vials, or maybe some your blood vials. All these comes under this infectious laboratory waste. And some pathological waste, like fixed pathological waste, are not infectious medical waste. Unfixed pathological waste must be incinerated. and waste containing pathological items must be appropriately labeled. Some different kinds of strains of bacterium we are talking about here, and collection of infectious waste. Infectious medical waste must be collected at the. This is very important actually. Before we dispose, the collection is very important. Otherwise, it will spread to the people very quickly. Infectious medical waste must be collected at the point of generation in appropriate color code bags, like orange bags are autoclaved waste, red bags are for other treatment methods. Biohazard bags must be labeled in a proper way, like we have to follow certain international standards. Like it may be a label like biohazard, biomedical waste, or infectious medical waste, or regulated medical waste. It must be properly labeled so that people can identify when they carry for the. So these are the 4 different categories of waste, like yellow, red, white, and blue. When there is a yellow bin, we can see that human and animal anatomical waste, like soiled waste, expired medicines, chemical waste, body fluids, clinical waste are maybe labeled in yellow or put in yellow trash bins. And red color is like contaminated waste, recyclable. This is like recyclable. This is like a mostly organic. And this is like recyclable. Plastic bags, bottles, pipes, containers, and other gadgets used for the treatment. And the white one, scalpable blades, needles, syringes, fixed needles, and sharp metals, or maybe some cutters and other tip materials. And the blue one is like a broken glassware. This is also more or less recyclable if you properly collect it. Broken glassware, cytotoxic waste, metallic body implements, contaminated glasses, including medicine vials. And this bar charts, this column charts represents some of the biomedical waste daily generated in India. Actually, India produces around 600 metric tons of biomedical waste daily. So this is about 10% more waste due to this pandemic situation. You see, the year was 2007 to 2020, along with COVID. See, this is more or less 10% higher than the regular one actually. And this is again UNO data, amount of healthcare waste generated tons per day in selected countries. You see here, this is according to the research paper, and this is according to the UNO report. India, this is 608, and this is also 600, more or less closely related, matching each other. So the wherever there is a more number, the usage of the PPE is more actually. Amount of healthcare waste generated tons per day in selected countries, Afghanistan, Mexico, Nepal. And you see here, Japan is also a small country, but they are generating much more than India because they are using more of, they are not recycling, or maybe they are using more of PPE than our country. Estimated COVID-19 hazardous waste volume for some selected countries. So this, based on the Chinese experience dealing with COVID-19 patients, estimated that approximately, in the previous case, we were talking about 3.95, here 3.40 kg hazardous medical waste can be expected daily from each infected person. Each person, for each day, denoted by this equation. These are all like some statistical estimations. South Africa, America, Brazil, Mexico, Egypt, Italy, India. They have total number of infected persons in a given healthcare facility of the particular country, and this is the basic definitions of this formula: number of infected cases minus total number of deceased cases, and the RI is the number of recovered cases. They have calculated like this, and this is the total hazardous waste volume generated during this is the estimations. Of course, these calculations are maybe in the beginning. This is the August month. Now This is maybe sometimes maybe changed or maybe doubled also. Now we can classify different types of medical waste based on the types: type 1, type 2, type 3. Type 1 comes under tissues. Type 2, radioactive waste, waste with a high content in heavy metals, pressurized containers. Type 5, absorbent cotton items, like hospital waste, where we can use mostly discarded medical plastics. Type 7, pathological waste, waste shops like needles, waste mixed with infectious waste. These are all the different items and equipment needed for the biomedical waste management: gloves, masks, maybe caps, overall jacket or a apron, boots, and different waste carrying bins or bags. These are the equipment needed for this. And we can have we know from the waste management, we have a different techniques for the same for this COVID-induced hazardous waste also, like thermal treatment, pyrolysis, microwave assisted. So in thermal treatment, what will happen? The efficiency is the total destruction of a COVID-19 related hazardous waste, a simple operation technique with 90% efficiency, 90% efficiency in waste volume. And there are challenges with this thermal treatment: generation of secondary pollutants like toxins, furans, and some kind of smoke, and even bottom ash. Energy intensive process with higher capital cost. We need to spend more of money for the power or energy. And similarly, pyrolysis also. Even Dr. Venkat also was talking about some of these treatment methods. Total destruction of hazardous waste volume along with the toxins and furans, and saving in energy. There is compared to this one, this is much better when saving energy. But there are some issues like specific requirement needed for to be defined for heat value and the loaded waste. And the third one is like a microwave assisted treatment. Less energy required due to the low action temperature, can be used as a mobile on-site treatment facility. So this is like a we can move here and there by mobile unit. Less environmental impacts due to low gas emissions and less residual waste. And some challenges are like high capital cost. We need to invest initially more, and sometimes autoclaving is required due to low spectrum of disinfection process. Even dry heat and chemical treatment also there. So every process have their own advantages and disadvantages, but somehow we have to compromise somewhere. So these are the common equipment used for the autoclaves or sharp pits to dispose your needles and other things. Deep burial, putting into the waste in a burial. Incineration, like a burning. And shedding, like making into small pieces for the landfill. So this is also another way of recycling of PPEs. So, for example, instead of face masks and other disposable items, we can use N95. Or, of course, there are some issues with N95. That is a secondary issue. And N95 or equivalent face mask can be used for again and again by proper washing or cleaning. And we have a disposable gowns and surgical masks, eyewear or googles. So when we wear or use these things, we have to inspect and sorting it properly. A careful inspection of PPE, personal protective equipment, while doffing. And infect PPE should be used. Intact PPEs should be used only. Any soiled or damaged one should be discarded properly. And the storage, intact PPE should be stored at greater than or equal to more than 4 days at 20 degrees Celsius temperature and a relative humidity of 40 to 50%. And next, so these N95s can be ultraviolet germicidal irradiation can be done for recycling for further use. So treatment of the designated PPEs through UVG, that is ultraviolet germicidal irradiation, UV, or simply UV also, chamber with a dose of 20,000 mg per centimeter square. Dose should be applied at both sides of the masks, like front and facing side and outer side. And heat treatment after completion of the required storage period, designated PPEs should go through thermal treatment at a 60 degrees Celsius for a period of 90 minutes. This is a simple heat treatment. As I said, we have to go beyond 60 to 70 degrees more than 1 hour. Chemical disinfection. Googles or other used, this is for disposable gloves and surgical masks if you want to use it. Again, Googles or other used eyewears should be disinfected with chlorine solution as a dose of 5,000 milligrams per liter for a period of 10 minutes. Chlorination. And after treatment, we have to again reinspection and sorting is important. Careful reinspection of the PPE treatment is important while donning. Intact PPE should be packaged for reuse with a clear indication of number of disinfections cycle, because how many times we used, that number must be there. If any sign of damage or soil appears, we have to discard that one. And we have to see that one. After reinspection and sorting, we have to go for the fit test, whether it is useful or not, whether is there any damage. Decontaminated PPE should be fitted for a new ones. It should be like a new one. Then only we can use it. Otherwise, we have to discard it, because any sign of loose or subpointal fit in the PPE should be discarded in a proper way. And now, after this series of cycles, now it will be a new decontamination cycle, and it can go for the second round and can be used. This is the one way of recycling our personal protective equipment. So what are the things needed for biomedical waste? It attracts flies. For example, if you don't dispose or if you don't store it properly, it attracts flies, house flies, insects and birds and animals, filthy and hygienic conditions, injuries and infections. So reuse of disposals, harmful chemicals and radioactive materials. Animals and insects may get infected or they become a carriers, so that it can spread to the humans also. Survival and mutation of pathogenic microbes like epidemics, and increase the communicable disease in the community. So we have a certain set of rules, governing rules, biomedical waste management and handling rule 1990, and it was amended in 2000, 2013 and 2011 also. Maybe I don't know about recently. And this biomedical waste management rule was revised 2016, 2018 and 2020 also as per the Gazette of India. And this table represents the waste not covered under the biomedical waste management rule under 2016. Solid waste management rule 216. E-waste management rule. These are all different waste management rules according to the Indian Gazette for different waste materials. And for example, we have a different waste generation, as we have seen the color coded segregations. For example, normal hospitals where there are no COVID patients, we have a, human anatomy waste, or maybe a needle or other clinical waste, we can properly dispose by landfilling or by incineration. But where there is a COVID wards or a waste from the COVID hospitals, it should be wait for 72 hours before collection, and that should be properly labeled and stored in a specified conditions. And so source separation is suspended. We cannot separate that one because it is infectious. So ad hoc service with increasing collection frequency, and it must be either incinerate or maybe autoclaved. We cannot landfill it actually. Maybe the soil also carries the bacteria. Most of the bacteria found in the soil itself. So the government or central apex bodies roles also very important when we are handling our these waste materials, especially biomedical waste. A set of guidelines on treatment and removal of waste produced during treatment, determination, and isolation of COVID-19 patients was released by General Pollution Control Board recently. In the beginning of the COVID pandemic, they have issued a certain guidelines. Under these isolation wards and hospitals need to be keep discrete shading codes, tins for the isolation of waste, and a committed container marked with COVID-19 waste or something like that should have been kept in a different brief extra space and should be just taken care of by the approved staff, not like all persons. And we have a methods of disposal of microbial samples and cultures. We have like a spectrum. This is a kind of a bacteria medium container. That kind of bacteria should be soaked in 5% phenol overnight so that it can be disinfected, or it can be easily disposed. And the container is autoclaved, and the phenol solution poured in a tin drain, and the container is sent for the final disposal site in a red bag or blue bag. And disposal of blood samples, for example, blood samples and containers, we must dispose by adding in a 10% sodium hypochlorite, which is a best disinfectant for these kind of samples. The container sent to the disposal site and disinfectant to the drain. So clotted blood samples along with container, it must be autoclaved, and container sent for the common disposal site in appropriate bag. So some other infectious samples like urine, pus, and some body fluids, stools, it must be add with 5% phenol. Then we can dispose it. If you directly dispose, there may be a chance of the spreading of the virus again. Disposal of microbiological cultures like bacteria, 10% sodium hypochlorite overnight, autoclaved bags, and discharge into the drains. Because this is a culture, nothing to worry about. Once it is infected with mixed with the 10% sodium hypochlorite. Petri dishes and other lab equipment, autoclaved if reusable, or disposable site for a recycling. And autoclaved bags are reuse petri dish, and cultured medias can be disposed of into the drains. And what are the do's for waste management? And generate waste when essential. Otherwise, better not to generate waste. Segregate waste at a source into specified categories of waste. With Professor, how much time do I have? I think I'm. Hello?
Sir, 5 minutes maximum?
Only 5 minutes?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
it's okay. You can continue, sir, for 5-10 minutes.
I would be happy if you give me another 10-15 minutes, because I have some most important slides to show, at least for the audience. Because
Okay.
if you permit me.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Yeah. Segregate waste at source into specified categories of waste with biohazard logos. Mutilate waste at source if possible to prevent unauthorized use. Destroy needles by using needle cutter or needle burners, not like directly. Keep the needles in a punctured proof transparent containers. Clean the bins regularly with soap and water and disinfect the bins regularly. All liquid chemicals waste should be drained out of the effluent treatment, drained out into the effluent treatment plants. And what are the don't generate waste unnecessary. For example, avoid injections by prescribing oral medicines. We may ask this also because this is the duty of a majority of the doctors actually. Nowadays, more or less, all the oral medicines are prescribed by the doctors, not injections. Never mix infectious or non-infectious waste. Never mix chlorinated waste with such waste. Never overfill the bins. That is most important. When you overfill the bins, there is a chance of spillage. There may be a chance of spreading of the virus or maybe a harm to the communities. Never store waste beyond 48 hours. There may be the bio waste when you store more than 48 hours, so there may be a chance of bad smell, which that the virus may spread and it will give you some kind of bad to the areas, especially, and it will also spread. There should not be any spillage on the way of transport. That is very important. Nowadays, even the countries like India, in some places, they don't bother. Even when they transport garbage, it may be a normal solid municipal waste or maybe a bio waste. We have to avoid the spillage, avoid transport of waste through crowded areas. That is very important. So when there is a market or a crowd place, we cannot run the vehicle on the same crowded areas, or else we have to change our timings. Do not throw the infectious waste into general waste without any pre-treatment or mutilation. Don't dispose the solid waste, plastic and some waste without mutilation. So these are the important do's and don'ts for a trash collection and dispose. And if necessary, plastic and metals and papers and glasses better to reuse, as we were hearing from of the research ideas from the previous speaker. So I think I come to the end, maybe another 5 minutes. Protecting workers from the risk of contagion during the outbreak. So how we can protect? Mostly the frontline people, like your medical people, nurses, doctors, police officers, or civil protection personnel, or maybe a military personnel. These are the frontline people actually, frontline workers we can say, because they have to monitor and do this business. So emergency response workers are like healthcare workers, laboratory personnel, death care workers. So if someone died, someone has to take care of the body for burial, right? Funeral service and emergency or maybe a burial. Emergency transport workers, cleaners, other personals. All these are all important emergency response workers. So these people are the frontliners having a risk of the this virus or maybe this biomedical waste diseases due to this biomedical waste. Emergency response workers risk of this contagion. Contact with the infectious patients and co-workers, contact with infectious blood, tissues and body fluids, contact with contaminated materials, medical equipment and personal protective equipment not properly used. There is a risk. When you not follow properly with the PPE in these areas, you may have a risk of this virus. Examples of measures to prevent this contagion: environmental and emerging controls, administrative measures. Properly, someone has to monitor whether people are following the state laws or not, and we must wear appropriate PPEs, personal protective equipment. And workers in essential activities, workers who interact with potentially infectious individuals, workers in shops and supermarkets, banks, schools. They are also comes under this category. Uh, and workers in a high density work due to the proximity with the other workers in a semi-confined settings like factories, call centers, open space offices. What are the examples of measures to be to prevent this contagion? We can maintain some kind of physical distance, or in other words, we can say social distance. Maybe we can introduce work shifts. Maybe 50% people can come in the morning shift and then remaining in the. We can share periodic scheduling. Yeah, or maybe if necessary, no need to go and we can do the job by phone calls or maybe virtual meetings. For example, because of this situation only, most of our webinars are doing virtually nowadays. And hygiene, providing hand disinfectants like sanitizers and promoting good respiratory hygiene at workplace. Cleaning, we have to clean regularly, cleaning and disinfecting of surface and even workstations and working objects regularly. Training and communication, we must train the people properly to on the preventive measures to be adopted. Personal protective equipment, again I'm repeating, we have to wear your mask or maybe face shield or whatever the personal protective equipment. And our response and some of the issues. This is one of the important couple of slides for the addressing the stress and psychological risks and violence and harassment due to this pandemic. How and where it will happen, we will see. And common psychological factors, stress and psychological factors, or physiosocial factors during this pandemic. Fear one's own health and well-being, or that of the family members and co-workers. Just fear makes actually fear one of the dangerous devil actually. Lack of safety equipment, proper personal protection, and once you have a problem or a doubt on this, you have to have yourself in isolation. Lack of social support that has to be done by the government bodies for the welfare of the public. Tension between the established safety protocols and the desired care for the support individuals. Difficulty in maintaining self-care activities like we must exercise, good eating habits, and we must take some proper rest, and the diet control and other things are important. And hygienic, a common response like stress, low mood, low motivation. If you, when we have a problem, you may have any kind of this problem like anxiety and depression, serious effect on mental health, low mood, low motivation, and sometimes the job uncertainty. A large number of workers are entrepreneurs, self-employed persons out of the work, and temporary closure of business or maybe a company during this confinement, and changes in work process and arrangements. For example, let us say nowadays all of sudden governments are saying that online schooling, online colleges. Some remote places in villages, they do not have even power. How can they do this online teaching, or how can they listen from a teacher or a college, a professor through online? So these are all some issues, present and future uncertainty of the workstation, increased stress, anxiety, depression, reduced motivation, low confidence. Research is also very important, right? Some people may not have a smartphones. Some people do not have a, even most of the villages in our country do not have a internet access also, poor network or poor signals. So common psychosocial factors like fear of being infected at work and lack of access to PPE, increased workload, reduced rest periods, increased fatigue and stress. These are all common factors. So common factors, continuation, inadequate information, isolation, long working hours, blurring lines between work and family life. To manage this family, it is a tough task to anyone to work at home from home, because we have to see the facilities or the separate room, or maybe we may have a kids, or we may have some other issues, multiple burdens like working duties, home and schooling and other things, frustration and sometimes boredom, domestic violence. It leads to sometimes common thing we can see that domestic violences. So examples of occupational safety measures to prevent and reduce these kind of stresses from the human being, like management, commitment and support and connection with the supervisors and colleagues, clear expectations like results to achieve and our results to achieve results to tasks to be done, flexibility. They have to give some kind of flexibility, disconnection from the work and at specified times, appropriate equipment. This is the job of a company or a work place to manage or to give a support, appropriate laptops and apps and other teleworking or adequate IT support or trainings, good system of communication and employee assistance service programs. So managing other occupational, of course, our related to this one, our ergonomics, our sitting ways or postures also very important. Manual handling of loads, acquired postures. If you not to follow this in an adequate or appropriate way, there may be some issues or health risks are there. And other risks like healthcare workers may also face risks arising from the prolonged uses of heavy PPT. For example, a person working in a hospital for many shifts, they may have this rigorous usage of these PPEs, personal protective equipments. Heat stress and dehydration problem will be there. Dizziness will be there. Physical marking on faces, you can see. These are all other issues related to this. Joint effort, what are the efforts are to protect the safety and health of all. So we must simulate the economy and employment. This is the duty of organizations or the apex bodies, supporting enterprises and job and incomes, protecting workers in the workplace, relying on social dialogues for solutions. So what are the different challenges? These are all very important. Sir, I'm going to close in 5 minutes. I'm sorry. I have crossed my time, it seems. Challenges and opportunities for the COVID-19 impacted at a digital home. For example, COVID-19 countries to drive a surge in engagement in digital home activities. Many households are trying to digital activities for the first time. So they do not have any proper idea how to use digital activities held an important place at home. And they are trying to adapt and learning also. Connectivity and content spend intentions beyond the crisis are promising, like increased adoption and uses of specific products and services reflect the greater levels of engagement with the technology in general. And the third one, digital well-being is a front of minds and security and privacy concerns. Reliability is the ultimate consumer. Like the whatever the network you have, it may be a consistent or not, whether proper signaling or not. Many issues are there. Many challenges are there. Customers and service providers don't talk the same language sometimes in terms of network control. For example, we have a regional language problem. The one who is talking in the phone may do not know the regional language. I may speak a Bengali or a Telugu or Hindi, and he doesn't know. There is a communication issue. Positivity about public service broadcasters. And the impact of the fake news runs deeper than the perceived levels. The trust in social media have remained. These are all the recent statistical data taken by the different NGOs and other organizations. They have surveyed with a number of countries and find out these conclusions, the impacts on a digital home. Social media have remained relatively stable throughout the pandemic. In March itself, 17% of the respondents said they trusted social media less than before COVID-19, and by the end of May, it was almost same. So It is also important aspect. And the negative economic impact. More than 70% startups have had to terminate full-time employees contracts since the start of the pandemic. Over 40% of the startups only have enough cash, remaining do not have any facilities. And GDP has contrasted 5.2% in 2020. Even the International Monetary Fund also, they have shown their empty hands, making the deepest global recession. And universities have become more open with each other, and some of the challenges and opportunities for researchers during this pandemic time. Data are being shared for the public, leading to more collaborative way of working. And what are the challenges? The pandemic has kept researchers from physical labs, spaces, delaying projects by months, even some years, we can say, in some cases. Social distancing or physical distancing has added the cost of research projects, forcing institutions to make a difficult choice. Pandemic has made the funding landscape for research unstable. And what are the opportunities? Public trust in the work of researchers has increased because we are coming back, with the new technologies, new PPEs, new vaccines. These are all some opportunities. We have a chance to work on these particular areas. The pandemic has brought a specific of the spirit of collaboration to research institutions. COVID-19 gives the institutions a chance to reimagine what's possible moving forward. So these are the summaries. I was in this 1.5 hour lecture. I was talking about the work. I reviewed about the medical waste management practices in the few developed as well as developing countries during this pandemic. And we were talking about face mask scenario, how they are generating, how the disposal has been taken place, and how can we recycle. COVID-19 pandemic has led to an increase in the healthcare waste all around the world. And during the SARS outbreak, there is a problem with the wastewater discharges, also leads to some kind of virus carrying streams that leads to deaths, but not for this COVID. But some previous cases shows that there is a waterborne diseases. Water also carrying some kind of pathogens. And solid waste management is an essential public health service. It requires immediate attention from the authorities. We cannot delay. We cannot wait for this, right? Even during or after the pandemic. Hence, there is a pressing need to evaluate different aspects of municipal or biomedical waste management in detail during the corona outbreak. Work also contribute to the existing literature by evaluating the government's responses in some of the developed and developing countries. So it is a joint effort for the both governments and public. We must have a complete idea or a civic sense what to do, what not to do in this particular situation. And we have seen the stress and other psychosocial factors or psychological issues or violence, harassment related to this pandemic. And these are some of the references. And I thank the Dr. B.C. Roy Engineering College for this wonderful opportunity. And if anything which is not relevant, I may ask for the excuse. And this is like completely a review kind of study based on my interest. And be safe. Thank you all. Over to the host.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable discussion and lecture. And if anybody have any question, please ask the question. So, anybody have any question?
Sir, please do make the stop presenting off.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think this is a kind of not original research, a kind of review statistical data. People may not have queries, it seems. Yeah, if you have, I can answer. I will try to answer.
And okay. So I think there is no question. So just over to our HOD sir, Dr. Jayanto Pal. He give us the vote of thanks. He will give. Over to sir.
Thank you, madam.
I have one question. Am I reachable to you all audience or not, Professor? First of all,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I start?
Yes.
So, good afternoon and happy New Year, everyone. It is my immense pleasure to present the vote of thanks for today's webinar on innovative waste management technologies. I would like to thank our guest speakers, Dr. Shanti Raju Pillai and Dr. Venkat Chintala sir, for presenting their invaluable work and enlightening us with their knowledge in this field. This field is very interesting and immensely important in today's context. Both the lectures gave deep insights into the topic and revealed some interesting facts. I am pretty sure that the precious knowledge that our speakers gave us will definitely help in our studies and future course of. Once again, I would like to thank Dr. Shanti Raju Pillai and Dr. Venkat Chintala sir for taking out time from their busy schedule and participating as guest speakers in this webinar. Thank you again so much. Thank you again, sir. I would like to thank the authority of our college, Dr. B.C. Roy Engineering College, for giving permission to organize this webinar. I would also like to thank our Honorable Director, Sir, Dr. Piyush Pal Rai, for his valuable suggestions and opportunities and opinions. He was main inspiration behind all these exercises. I would give special thanks to Dr. Saurabh Ranjan Das, teacher in charge chemistry of Basic Science and Humanities Department, for inviting such brilliant speakers like Dr. Pillai and Dr. Chintala to conduct this program. I would like to thank Dr. Abhijit Kumar Ghosh, coordinator of this webinar, for his constant effort and working to make this webinar successful. I also want to thank another coordinator of this webinar, Dr. Sukalpa De, for her immense effort and cooperation. I want to thank Mr. Somnath Chakraborty, Technical Assistant, CSE Department of Dr. B.C. Roy Polytechnic College, for his continuous support to success this webinar. I also want to thank, last but not the least, I would like to thank all the participants to take out time for the webinar and have a patient hearing. Once again, thank you all. I hope for all of you, your sincere cooperation for all of our future endeavor. Thank you once again. Thank you. Now over to Madam. Welcome, Madam.
So, okay, we are at the end of the session, and this is the certificate of appreciation for Dr. Shanti Raju Pillai, sir. Thank you for taking the time for your busy schedule for this webinar. And just now we end the session.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the certificate.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
the opportunity, first of all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
To all the
sir.
professors.
Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Special thanks to Dr. Saurav.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
He is the main convener and main
Thank you, sir.
organizer.
Yeah. Can I leave, sir? Professors?
Okay. We end the session.
Yes, sir. We
See you.
will meet
See you.
up with you.
Sure, definitely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, sir.